I call these slopes and that the Ngāti Whenua of this land. It's the exceptional lands, and it's been a wonderful part of our engagement with this property to be able to extend these vineyards. So I'm going to kind of hand over to Craig to tell you a little bit of a story about Lion's Tooth and the planting of Lion's Tooth.
Hey everybody. I had the pleasure of meeting Mike and Claudia while I was working at Night Offices way back in like 98, something crazy like that, when I'd been working in a few wineries, but it was the first winery I worked at where there was real passion about wine, and I really realised what a big picture it was going to be. And the next few years I made really good friends with Mike and Claudia, and I was absolutely I knew the mission Mike was on. He was going up and down the country looking at soils everywhere, looking for these soils basically. And when they asked me to come down and manage their vineyard for them, I was just like, I couldn't turn it down really. It was just such a great opportunity. And so we did, without looking at the property, we came down, and I had my partner with me. She was 7.5 months pregnant, and we shared the house with Mike and Claudia, and it was a really awesome time. It really was. It was like my daughter was born, Pyramid Valley Vineyards were born, and it was a real magic in the air. It really was. It was a cool time. It was great. And Mike and I spent weeks out here digging holes up and down everywhere, plotting soil, sitting, talking about dirt, and that's the shape of the vineyards is basically where everything changed, and we decided this is going to be classified here, it's going to be classified here, it's going to suit these vines or it's not. And so from there we went and took like cuttings from all Mike's favourite vineyards, probably half the people here's vineyards, and grew them in our own beds, and the original plantings are those vines, which is really cool. And I think he's still taking cuttings from those vines, is that right? Yeah. Propagating. So it's a real New Zealand vineyard, it really is. All the natives around the pond and on the spring face there we went out and collected seeds from up in the Doctor's Hills and over the back there, so we had like true natives that would like really fill out the biodiversity of the area. And it's really worked. When I first came here it was a bit of a dust bowl. I was a bit shocked actually. But then the pond came and look at it now, it's amazing, isn't it? It really is. It's a beautiful dream. It is. So yeah, I don't know. Mike was an amazing teacher, he really was, and I think it's attracted a lot of us too, Mike. His ability to use his stories and humour to illustrate his points was really exceptional, and I really loved that. In my time here I just learned so much. It was incredible, it really was. So yeah, I'd like to raise my glass to Mike Wersing and say thank you. Thanks for everything. Mike. Thank you.
Has known Mike, he's from Waitaha. He's of Waitaha, sorry. And has known Mike since he came to this property. And he will tell a little story and take us through a planting and blessing of the tree. Kia ora.
Kia ora te whānau. Ko te kola marama te manga. Ko huranui te awa. Ko hane koma marae. Ko te pahi tūpuna. Ko waita kia muri te iwi. Te he mōri ora. Welcome everybody, welcome to this beautiful spot, this most of sacred spots, a site that was where ancestors sent their prayers that would travel from the North Island down through the North Island to here, and those prayers were sent back to their old country. And this is an incredible ancient site. I was really fortunate to meet Mike and Claudia in those early days, and to turn up with some sculptures and to meet Mike and Claudia and to feel their love and their warmth towards the spirit of this place. It was incredible, you know, like they had an understanding of, we see a tree, And the really interesting thing about this tree, there's been an artifact found on the west coast up the top of the South Island that bears, on this waka, bears a turtle. And that comes from the west coast of the Americas. So there is an enormous connection to this land and this tree and those people. And Mike was really aware of that. There is more to the life than just what we see above. There is all this what's going on below. There's all the water that's converted. There's the weathers that are made. And it's through that instant connection with Mike and Claudia that took on my art. I got asked by the elders of Waitaha to be an artist for them and to come here. I was born in the Waikari, just down the road there, and to come here has been an incredible part of my journey, my trail as a sculptor for those people, because this is where it started. This is where it really happened for me. And I'm not here just as myself. I'm here with the tūpuna of Waitaha. I spent the last 30 years forming a relationship with a people that I did not grow up knowing. I would like to bring some of their names into this thing, because they've been incredible people for me to realise there's another story in this land, a story that we're not many of us see. There's some beautiful rock drawings in this area, some incredible rock drawings, and drawings that were done without a fear of a spear coming. They were done with this incredible knowledge of this land, and their seeing and hearing and smell, and their spirituality was as clear as that for them as that. You know, like it was not something separate. It was something that was very much part of their life. That whole spirituality. So I welcome you all here today, and to be part of this tree going into this ground, and the honouring of Mike and the understanding that Mike had. I'll go over it again, because it's an incredible understanding to think that there's just so much more going on in this world than what it is we see above the ground. And there is an incredible connection between this tree and this land here. So for me today is the blessing that comes from those old people, the Ruka family, the Tamaiharoa family, the Meihana family, the Werepu, Puata Homes. All these people are here with me today because it is their spirit too that walks with me. A mihi nei, a mihi nei, a mihi nei. It is with that blessing that I give this tree to this spot here, to this family here that has given us here today. Grateful to be asked to be involved with it. Thank you all.
Kia ora, Bert.
Kia ora. Nick? You may need some assistance. Who wants to be an associate tree planter?
You take the whole man.
If anyone wants to feel like they want to be part of this, please.
Watch the shoulder. Oh, okay. Mate, how many bottles have you got? Two. I know. Yeah, I know. Jesus.
The painful.
Yeah.
I've worried about the dip.
Yeah. You are. That's legal. The animal is actually legal. Is that legal, Matt? Are you sure it's legal? Make it out. What are you into, bro? Rocks. Not going to judge you. Yeah, exactly. Whatever you're into, I'm not going to judge you.
Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, that's my spirit.
Maybe while that's being planted, next to me is Phil Tonkin, who spent an enormous amount of time on this property with Mike and Claudia, but he's spent a lot of time with it in the redwood forests of Northern California. So there's a little story he might share with us about the redwood tree.
The areas of redwoods, notably in Northern California, and it's a tree that was harvested for timber for a long period of time. So there's not that many areas of what they call old growth trees still surviving, but there's an area just to the north of Arcata in Northern California called Redwood National Park. And within that area there are some groves of these old trees, and the diameter at the base of the tree would run into meters. They'd virtually be one tree trunk that encompass the width of all the road that we have here at the moment. And one of those groves of trees is set aside in the name of Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of President Johnson. And it's a grove of trees where the base of each tree would be more than 2 or 3 meters, and the height of the trees are enormous. It's like walking into a cathedral. In fact, the best vantage place which I took up was to lie on the ground and look up to the top of the trees. They're a magnificent entity. And of course they live for a very long time. The future of this tree, if it survives well in this location, is going to run into more than 1,000 years. It may well be double that if it goes to its full age. The interesting thing about these trees is that they don't live alone. And so we all ought to say a slight prayer to this tree that is destined to live by itself, because the other trees in the forest not only communicate above ground with the wildlife that moves through the forest, they communicate below ground with the microorganisms that live within the root structure of trees. And some of the ecologists have found now that there's actually quite a signature between these trees that is related to this below ground activity, which is very much part and parcel of the vineyards that we're looking at behind us. So this is the way we should approach this, as not only a memorial to Michael and Claudia, but something that actually has an antiquity which is as magnificent as our old growth forests that we still have existing on the west coast of the South Island. The Remu, for example, can live well over 1,000 years. So they see a lot in their life history, much of which is we talk about as our history when we look back in time.
Thank you, Phil.
Well,
You know how to play on
Shall we turn it over? Let's turn it round a bit so we get the other side of it. Can we that way? Oh, that's There you go. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Spike. Just getting this all out.
Like Field of Fire.
Remember, I was with just for Morris and Mike. We were walking through the vineyard and we're tasting the soil.
Steve.
And they say, "Oh, this tastes like cucumber." Just about now, this tastes like cucumber.
Field of Fire.
Oh, really?
Vineyard.
Because I was working with just for Morris and Mike in 2000. No, just longer. Maybe 2001. Because we're working through the. Yeah, because just by the second house.
I know, right?
Still like
You look at the.
Yeah. There's a few on
Just make sure it's straight.
Oh, maybe it was his back. I don't know. I never saw his face at least.
So I have these two stones.
great.
So one is shooter from Thailand, and one is the stone from the first vineyard in Alsace.
Favorite.
A little bit of dirt into
Yeah, that's why I bought them too. Because and I picked up this stone with Ernie Lawson. So this is on behalf of Ernie.
So, as we've said, if you've bought any particular memento with you that you'd like to be part of this tree's life for its life, please feel free to do that. I know CP, I just heard a little story about what he has with him now. So if you want to tell a story when you come up, that's fine. Or similarly, if you just want to grab some soil and help plant the tree, feel free to do that. But I think CP's got a lovely story here.
I bought these two stones because Mike has an affinity with German Rieslings and Alsatian wines, and the red schist I picked up with Ernie Lawson when I was staying with him, and we picked up the stone from Edna Palette, and this other one I was with Jackie Bartholmé from Albertman, and we picked it up from the First Antoine Vineyard. And because Mike liked these two vineyards, I'm sure it would have been better if I had Chenin Blanc from Marcel Dice, but I don't, and so I will put this in for Mike.
Nice one, Steve.
I'd just like to say that Mike and I were good friends, and we had so many good times together, and the most fun times we had was actually pretty serious debating, and we got to not to blows because Michael's a very gentle man, but we were always just talking about biodynamics and how I didn't completely believe in them, and anyway, he taught me a lot, and I love the guy, and so sorry that he's gone.
Got it.
Big off you go.
Right in there.
What's that? Oh yeah. It's like the you put the sand in.
Essential.
Mike, when he was very young, wrote a lot, wrote poetry, and recently Claudia has found his book. Claudia, is it good to say this now? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got two short ones. Mike always gifted with the word, even as a very young 9-year-old. Pine. I am a pine. The harsh wind rustles throughout my needles. I bend and sway with the wind. I cry out as the barbed wire tears my skin. Birds perch and seek refuge on my limbs. When it is calm, I stand stationary, waiting for the wind to come to bully and push me around, as if the world was at its feet. He treats me as if I was his servant, but I'm not. I'm a pine. I'm a great pine. The great oak spreads his arms over the world of friendliness. A great God is he, mightier than time itself. As he stands watching over the plains, mountains, valleys and skies, he misses the dying call of Mother Earth. Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to say just one or two words as well. We've had a long connection with the property, with Mike and Claudia, and it came to being through our combined involvement, communal involvement with the biodynamic impulse. And this is something that lives really strong with Mike and in Claudia. We've spent quite some time over the years together making the preparations and using them. We found not too far away from here, and there's even a connection between the two properties, that we've had cows grazing these slopes up top, for instance, when it was very difficult 2 or 3 years ago in the drought. And I think we should really acknowledge that although it was a combined impulse from Mike and Claudia, Claudia was really so totally committed to the biodynamic impulse that we need to not lose sight of her, of what is of her in this environment now, because it lives on, of course. As we heard before, it's not just what you can see, it's also the invisible. It's the life in the land, it's the impulse that lives and that drives this whole ecosystem. And the diversity that you see is a real part of it too. And I think you have to recognise that a native planting belongs on a vineyard like this. Animals belong on a vineyard like this, because they're all part of the complete structure. So I think it's fantastic what's happened here. And it's been surely a combination of influences from round about that's been carried and focused by Mike and Claudia into this property. I think it's fantastic.
It's like sitting in the grave, isn't it?
Oh well, if no one else is going to say anything more, I'll just say something a little bit more. When Mike came into my life, it was an inspiration. We got really drunk one night. He just turned up randomly in the middle of harvest, and we had a really crazy night. And then ever since then, his just charisma and his his knowledge and his passion just totally infected me, and I guess looking back on it, he was a mentor for me for a long time. And then obviously he got a bit depressed and probably drank too much booze, which is something that we all in the Wine industry really need to focus on and keep in check. But you know, it doesn't really matter. I think he touched a lot of people and inspired a lot of people. I just want to say thank you, Mike. Amazing, wonderful. Thank you.
I got a funny story about Mike. We had Sylvia Cartwright, who was the Governor General at the time, staying with us at Mountford, and Mike was there for dinner, and Mike was trying to hold himself back from swearing, but then he couldn't help himself, so fuck was used a few times during dinner time, and I said, shh, Mike, that's the Governor General there. Oh, she's not my Governor General. I'm American. So he was not one for being serious on serious occasions. And one of the deepest memories I have of Mike was at that dinner.
It looks great there, doesn't it? Lovely.
Doesn't need water.
I'd just like to mention something about Mike in relation to animals. He had an amazing love of animals, and we had an Irish terrier with a reputation for hunger. And that terrier used to follow Mike around the kitchen. As Mike filled up all the cat bowls, he'd follow around and eat all the cat tucker out of the cat bowls, and Mike would just keep going, and so would the dog. And the dog, Flynn's just buried over here actually at the end of the extension. Got into his kitchen one day, and Mike was adamant that some fish flakes that he'd brought back from Japan for a special dish had been on the bench, and my dog had eaten them. It was hard to tell whether he had or not. It was the footprints on top of the counter that probably gave him away. His love of Nina and Bella and all the animals, the Highland cattle that he had here as well. Yeah, he loved animals. And I can sympathise with Hugh talking about pulling weeds out by hand. The machine's a wonderful thing, but nowhere near as effective as hands. And after spending weeks and weeks and weeks of pulling weeds out, Mike invited us all down, the whole crew down to the house for a feed. And he starts off with a green soup. I don't know if any of you know what this is, but if you've pulled weeds out here, you know what it is. And that's what Mike fed us to start off our dinner. Bloody mellow soup. So yeah, we miss him. There's a lot of really good stories about Mike. A fair amount of it you can't actually repeat in public, and most of it none of you would believe anyway. But the 7 years or so that I spent here with Mike and Claudia, some of the most entertaining and exciting years of my life. And Rod and I always said if we ever wrote a book, we'd just get locked up, so we never wrote the book. But the memories are there, and they won't ever go away. And I think Mike's here too, and always will be.
Okay, well, we might make our way downhill, back to the winery. Again, if you've got any little mementos or you want to say anything with the tree on the way past, just take your time, and we'll gather down at the winery in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Okay.
I have a photograph of the ancient waka that was found up north, if anyone would like to look at it. It's got an incredible carving of a turtle on the slope of it. It's over 2,000 years old. A lot of academia. connection between here and there. Ah, no, that's the incredible thing. It was made of contour and then it was over here. Yeah. It's old.